What up, y'all? What up, y'all? This is Ree with Aristide. We're talking about creative types today. I literally just got home from work, so that's why I look like this right now. Anyway, there is this thing called the Big Five personality test, and I'm gonna go over it like in more detail on the next slide. These are my results. So, this is the Ocean Big Five test. It's kind of in the wrong order. Like it would be openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and then neuroticism. The reason why it says like emotional stability is that way it could be ranked from low to high. I guess, I don't know, because they kind of want like the more positive traits to be on the right side. So y'all can read, y'all got eyes, y'all can pause and y'all can read what these things mean. I mean, they all sort of read the way that you'd expect them to. Anyway, yeah. So, these are my results. Like, listen, guys. The picture that I'm using, this is the only non-HEICE file on my MacBook. It's a picture of me smelling my ex-boyfriend's armpits. So, we'll go over my results on this and how it connects to creative types. There's a YouTuber called Greg Guevara who made like a video who honestly he inspired me to make this video, and if you want to watch his video you should, because it explains it better, and he's a better editor, bigger budget, more time. I'm assuming he does YouTube for a full-time job. I do not, nor do I really want to. Let's start going through with my results. Anyone who knows me, who watches this channel, hopefully, you got this vibe from me. I don't really know what, but in terms of extroversion, I'm slightly leaning high, but not really too much. I am very much like an ambivert. I would say that in new situations, I'm pretty awkward. Next is agreeableness. How I fit onto this scale, I scored somewhat high agreeableness, which, I was surprised about, because I thought that I'm a pretty stubborn person, and I typically like to have things my way. But I think through time I've sort of like realized that like, hey, most people, like, you can't change someone else, like, and trying to change someone or change someone's mind is like no, it's not worth it. Everyone is so set in their own ways, and this kind of sucks because like it increases the polarization between separate groups, and like not being like, again, like I'm so centrist pilled. In terms of agreeableness, I will take some punches that maybe another person wouldn't take, right? Maybe and this sucks because I've been friends with and been in relationships with people who like dead ass were not good people. But I was just like, shit, I mean, I don't want to mess up what's going on right now. What we have right now is like pretty good. Even though I like don't like this person or they don't like me, I don't want to mess this up. Next is conscientiousness. I think I have pretty low conscientiousness. I'm a very impulsive person, and you can tell this through my work, okay? You can tell this through my work. I do not have a good grasp on like a life plan that I want, but I don't think I'm an irresponsible person because I'm still alive, I'm still paying my bills, right? I have a Roth IRA, but I kind of tend to do things last minute, and I'm not always prepared, and sometimes it feels almost lucky when I am able to like get something off the ground and finish something, and oftentimes it's because I really care about something that it's like, it turns out good. So next is neuroticism, but on this scale it's emotional stability. I scored like medium for emotional stability, which I guess kind of makes sense. I was crazy like a year ago, genuinely. I think I've mellowed out a decent amount, just mainly because like I've cut off people from my life who were causing emotional instability within my life. And right now, like, the biggest person who was causing emotional instability in my life is no longer in my life, which is a good thing in the long run, because I was low-key going crazy. The actual like process of like liking this person didn't hurt, but the uncertainty kind of killed me. And in a way that it, you know how it goes. So I feel like middle of the road emotional stability. I don't think I'm I don't think I'm like crazy, but I'm not the most, well-regulated individual. And finally, openness to experience. I scored very high in openness to experience, and I agree with this too. I'm open to trying out like everything, genuinely. That's why I'm bisexual. Shit. I fuck with everything pretty much. I think everything can be cool, even like the pretentious stuff. Like listen, y'all. I've had men try to convince me that Sabaton was good. I had men try to convince me that car seat headrest was good. I had men try to convince me that, like, I don't even know, Skinny Puppy was good. And I listened to all of that, and I was like, wow, this is good. Because I have high openness, and I'm accepting to new ideas, and I really do. And that, it kind of ties in with my somewhat high agreeableness. I can find, like, merit in, like, pretty much anything. And again, I'm not like a personality type person. This isn't backed on science. This is backed on my 5-minute research session. I'm just trying to talk with authority so that way you have confidence in me, even though I may be spouting complete misinformation to you. So I'd be a really good politician. Anyway, so the way this connects with creating and creative types, so we'll actually start off with openness to experience. So openness to experience, as I just explained, is just like, what ideas are you open to? And so, people with high openness are very exploratory, and they come up with new things. They combine things and to create something new. So like an example of this would be like me making a fanfic about House MD in Breaking Bad, where they sing Beatles songs, right? I don't think anyone's really done that before. There's iterators and innovators. Innovators have high openness. Not to like call myself an innovator. I really don't think. You know what? I think it is innovative. I think it is innovative to make a Young Sheldon, House MD, Breaking Bad fanfic where they all sing the Beatles. Personally, I think that's pretty innovative. And low openness would be iterators. So these are people that, cover songs or, follow the rule. And you know what I mean? Like follow the rules and kind of make a lot of fan art. I don't know. Like kind of just like they don't really like create new things per se. I have like 40 OCs that I have not been taken care of. Unfortunately, they have withered and died since I've started my full-time job, but like whatever. Next, we'll move to neuroticism / emotional stability. And so like, how does that manifest in creative types? I would say neuroticism essentially informs how much someone's work is influenced by their pain or, emotions. Me being down the middle kind of makes sense because I feel like, some of my work, I just do it for like fun. Other times my work is genuinely informed by my own trauma or pain or current, awful thing that's happening in my life. All right, next is conscientiousness. The way that manifests itself in creative types is how high effort or low effort, like how perfectionist someone is when they're creating their art. And for me, it is so hard to create art in more than one sitting. I can't do it, which is why I have so many unfinished projects and stuff. If I don't sit down and finish it in one sitting, it's not getting done. It's absolutely not getting done. So this kind of sucks because like since I do have high openness and low conscientiousness, since I have so many ideas, I rarely ever put them on paper. I could make this video. I could spend like weeks researching the Big 5 personality test and spend weeks on editing and, finding better graphics and pictures and all that. But like, first of all, no one cares and no one has time for that. And for me, it's like, well, this feeling that I have is very fleeting, and tomorrow I'm not going to want to make this video. In 5 hours, I'm not going to want to make this video anymore. So it's like, while I have that creative drive and I'm actually sitting down and recording, I'm going to make this video. Next is agreeableness. and the way that that sort of works itself into a artist. High agreeableness is willing to like compromise and collaborate and sort of, take what people are saying and kind of working with it. So a lot of people have said, oh, get a script or like edit your videos better, to me. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. But since I'm so low conscientious, I'm like, shh, it's kind of overpowering the agreeableness. I do agree. Yeah, my videos are so sloppy, very low effort. But I agree with you, and I do need to get better at that. But my conscientiousness is so low, I'm not gonna. But I'm not really that defensive. I used to be very, like, me and my ex that I did like a year ago, we would like argue. We had like a recurring argument where like he was a very high conscientious artist where he was very perfectionist and like, spent hours and hours on works. Me, my ass, I do that shit in one sitting, genuinely. But he would spend hours and hours on work, and he would come to me and be like, why do you not care? Like, he was so stringent on wanting to improve things to the point where he probably didn't see me as like a legitimate artist because I had such low conscientiousness and he had such high conscientiousness. And I don't know what his agreeability is. I'd say it's pretty low because he told me to like kill myself and that he hated me. So there's that. It's all jokes, guys. It's all jokes. And finally, extroversion. This in context is just kind of like how much you want to collab with other artists. And for me, I've been on a podcast. I mean, shit. If I had time, I would try to get more integrated within the creative community that I'm in. I'm just in so many different creative communities. I'm technically in the YouTube creative community. I'm in the I used to do digital art. I still am I still consider myself like a artist. And I'm also in a band. And so right now I think my highest like extroverted sect of art would be my band, because I genuinely go out there and network. Like, I genuinely go out there and I go to shows and I network with people and I say, yo, what's your Instagram? Like, let's play a show together, this and that. What kind of music do you play? Because networking is really important and collaborating is really important in art. So that's how, my creativeness sort of, manifests itself as a creative type. And, most of my scores are in the middle, but my conscientiousness is really low and my openness is really high. Those are the most obvious ones where, like, openness, my channel is so random. It's a variety channel. There's no organization. Low conscientiousness, there's no organization. And there's no editing on, like, any of the videos. And if there is editing, it's very minimal. And it takes me, like, about, one sitting to do all of it. So now we're going to talk about the Beatles. Because shit, we're going to talk about the Beatles. So John Lennon, and again, I don't know these folks like personally, right? So I could, I didn't sit them down and say, hey, can you take this quiz for me? And this is me kind of like judging their entire career, and kind of more so like what they're known for. So John, I think, was the most extroverted out of all the Beatles because he was the funniest. Okay, he was the most willing to speak his mind. And he, did collaborate with a lot of different people and stuff. Low agreeableness, though. That man was stubborn. He quit the band, okay? I'd say, like, kind of low conscientiousness because you can kind of tell when he's not putting effort into things. But you can't tell when Paul was not putting effort into things, if that makes sense. And now that's not to say that he's like a lazy person and like not a good artist at all. He's a great artist, and I do love a lot of his work. But some of his work, and this is where him and I, we're kind of like, we're kind of the two of the same coin, me and you, John Lennon. So because he has such high openness, from my perception, he has such high openness and somewhat low conscientiousness. He was doing random shit, bro. If y'all have like seen the stuff he was doing with Yoko made him do crazy stuff. Okay, he was just like, there's like a whole like 18-minute audio clip of him like moaning her name while their heartbeats play. I would listen to it, y'all. Listen to it. The Wedding album. Emotional stability low, and again, his uh his pain is really poignant, and it can really be felt through like a lot of his solo career. You like genuinely like his pain informs so much of his music. And there's like the whole meme where it's like John being like, it's Christmas time, go fuck yourself, and Paul's like, it's Christmas time, get out the wine. Like that sort of like the dichotomy is crazy, guys. So yeah, so his pain really does, it comes out in like all his work, even his Beatles stuff, but especially in his solo work, it comes out in all of his work. You know how that man was feeling when he was recording the song or when he wrote the song. You really know right then and there, because his emotions are so evident in his work. Yeah. Next, Paul. Paul scores pretty highly in all of these. High extroversion, high agreeableness, high conscientiousness, high emotional stability, high openness to experience. Slightly less than John, because he wasn't. Paul is more kind of stick to the books, but he still was experimenting a lot. I mean, he did what y'all know, freaking Temporary Secretary. But when he was doing Temporary Secretary, even though it was like kind of experimental, it was still generally following the rules of music that he kind of created himself. If you listen to Boys of Dungeon Lane, you're like, he's not creating anything new. He's just, yeah. In terms of emotional stability, he has emotional songs. He has poignant emotional songs. But the thing is, when you listen to Here, There, and Everywhere, you just think this is a beautiful song about love that can be applied to pretty much anyone, But when you listen to Julia, written by John Lennon, you're like, oh, he had someone in mind. This is John's experience. When you listen to a love song by Paul, when you listen to I Will, say for instance, you don't say this is Paul's experience. You just say this is the experience of feeling love for someone, right? Paul definitely makes music for the people. John makes music for himself, I would say. At least in terms of like how they would express their own emotions or pain through their music. John's so much more obvious than Paul, in my opinion. Not to say that, like, Paul has made, like, explicit songs about, like, especially, like, songs about John. But Here Today is still very much like yes, this is about John, but you could still apply this to, like, someone else who you loved and lost. Whereas Julia, it's like, bruh, like, it's like, come on, y'all. Like, it's so he has high conscientiousness. He does have his own, like, experimental thing. If you heard, like, Liverpool Sound Collage, ball knowledge, he has high conscientiousness. No, in his, like, published works, it's like, come on, like, he's ticked off all his T's and, this and that. So his work, as a result, sounds very polished. And he has relatively high agreeableness, I would say, and high extroversion, because he's collabed with Kanye West, bro. He's collabed with Kanye West, he's collabed with Michael Jackson, he's collabed with Taylor Swift, like, he's collabed with, everyone. All right, now let's go on to George. George is the quiet Beatle, so low extroversion. However, the way that this manifests in his art is kind of interesting, because he was in Traveling Wilburys, so he was collabing, but I think it was more so in the way where it's like, well, the Traveling Wilburys were all people that he, like, fucked with heavy, right? Whereas, like, people like, John and Paul were kind of, like, going all over the place with randos. George was like, I have my creature comforts. Bob Dylan, come over here. They start making out aggressively. In terms of agreeableness, George did leave the band, okay? So I'd say like he, doesn't have the lowest agreeableness, but you know, and yeah, I think he has high openness with his whole spiritual arc and this and that. If you look at his solo work, if you look at Wonderwall Sound, if you look at All Things Must Pass, if you look at Gon Troppo, yes, he kind of has his like little, and especially towards like the 80s and later years, he definitely does have his like, developed sound where he plays the guitar a certain way and there's certain instruments that he likes. But, especially like breaking off from the Beatles with like Wonderwall Sound and All Things Must Pass, he was a lot more experimental. Until he like eventually did find his sound later in the 80s. In terms of emotional stability, like I ranked him like relatively high because when I was listening to his music, I didn't really get too much of a sense of like, oh, he definitely wrote this for someone in mind, like this and that. Yeah. Layla hits so much harder than Something, in my opinion. Next is conscientiousness. I think he has pretty high conscientiousness. His stuff is pretty polished. Not as much as like Paul, because like would Paul put It's Johnny's Birthday on an album? Would Paul put Thanks for the Pepperoni on an album? I don't know. And agreeableness, yeah, I said somewhat low because he did leave the band a couple times. But that's because he got like a lot of pushback on things too, because he wasn't ever really taken seriously. So I like, in terms of like extroversion and agreeableness, when it comes to creative types, I was kind of like, those ones I'm not as good as explaining. And I'm also like very much like saying this off the top of my dome and I didn't prepare a script. So I am just like bullshitting y'all, but I hope some of this makes sense, right? And finally, Ringo Suta. We'll just skip over extroversion and agreeableness. I mean, I put his agreeableness at high because he just plays the drums, man. He just plays the drums. He just keeps the beat. There's that. So we'll skip those because it's kind of hard for me to even talk about extroversion and agreeableness. I've found I have, but conscientiousness, emotional stability, and openness to experience. So I'm gonna be honest, guys. I haven't listened to a lot of the Ringo Suta solo works. Mainly because I don't really like it. I'm sorry, Ringo stans. I just don't like his solo work. I think he has pretty medium conscientiousness, not to be like he's sloppy or anything like that, but he's not a perfectionist by any means. Openness to experience, I would say low because he didn't really do a ton of experimental stuff. His music largely sounds the same now as it did 40 years ago. And any, change in style was kind of just a natural consequence of the change of music style over time. And in terms of emotional stability, like I put him kind of in the middle because he actually he dealt with thoughts. Like he dealt with, thoughts. There's a quote where he's like, I cut my hair because I didn't, I was a coward. I would have, cut my skin. And this actually doesn't really manifest in his creative works, which is very interesting. So I put him like middle of the road for emotional stability, but honestly, like as a creative type, his emotions do not greatly manifest themselves in his work, I've noticed. So yeah. Okay, and that's the last slide. So, damn, I was recording for a while. So I hope that makes sense, and thank you guys for watching.